Assalamu alaikum, welcome to Times of Ummah. Today's first news update is coming from Israel, where the Israeli opposition leader Yair Lapid has informed the Israeli president Reuven that I can form a coalition government in Israel, which will be the end of Netanyahu's 12 years long governance. Dear viewers, late in March, fourth Israeli election held that was aimed any party to bring a majority government, because in the whole history of Israel, yet no party had formed government with 61 seats. And here I also tell you that there are total 120 members in Israeli Knesset, and to form a government, a party need to elect 61 members. When Netanyahu failed to put together his own coalition following Israel's fourth election in less than a year, President Reuven tasked Yair Lapid to form a government. Dear viewers, Lapid said on Twitter that he had informed the Reuven of the deal. He said this government will work for all the citizens of Israel, those that voted for it and those that didn't. We will do everything to unite Israeli society. Lapid, a former TV presenter and a secular centrist, won the crucial support of hardline religious nationalist Naftali Bennett, a technology multimillionaire who has held a number of government portfolio, including the defense ministry. Under the coalition agreement, Bennett and Lapid would rotate the role of the prime minister, with Bennett taking up the post for the first 2 years and Lapid the final 2. The agreement still needs to be voted in the Knesset, Israel's parliament, where it requires majority support before the government can be sworn in. The vote is expected to be held within 7 to 12 days. Dear viewers, the Netanyahu's party Likud won majority of the seats but still failed to form a government in the March elections. Crucially, Bennett's far-right party allied with Netanyahu refused to join forces with the United Arab List, a party that emerged as a kingmaker of sorts. The coalition that had been made against Netanyahu's government would consist of a patchwork of ideologically opposed parties and would include a party that represents Palestinian citizens of Israel for the first time in the Israeli history. The head of the United Arab List party, Mansour Abbas, signed onto the coalition less than 2 hours before Wednesday's deadline was set to expire. Abbas has said, "We promised that we would be the last ones to agree and sign the document. This is what we did. We understand that all the other parties have joined the process. We have seen that all the other parties have signed the document." A reporter from West Jerusalem said there were questions about how long the new government would remain united. She said it is an alliance between 8 parties that go from the left to the far right, with the decades of illegal settlements activity and expansion, the proponent of the two-state solution. So these are the people who don't really have anything in common except the desire to oust Netanyahu. That's the glue of this coalition. How long that glue can keep them together is what a lot of Israelis are wondering. Dear viewers, Yossi Beilin, a former justice minister, welcomed the announcement and said the situation in which 8 medium and small parties are forming a coalition has never happened before. It will not be easy. Netanyahu is still around. He added, "We should cross our fingers and hope that this government will not only oust Netanyahu, but it will also be able to perform and to be sustainable." Today's second news update is coming from Afghanistan, where the Kabul police has said at least 8 people have been killed and 9 other wounded in the 2 bomb blasts targeting 2 minibuses in Kabul. Dear viewers, most of the liberals saying Taliban are attacking civilians, and they also saying Taliban took responsibility, but they are just lying. In this video, I want to clear your mind about the Taliban's attacks. Dear viewers, Taliban have several times made it clear that we never want and kill civilians, and that's strictly prohibited in Islam, and we can't even think of it. Dear viewers, when 2 buses were targeted earlier this week, initially the liberals also said it was done by Taliban, but after that the Islamic State took responsibility. And the Taliban has also made it clear that the Islamic State have brought by the Kabul government to fight Taliban, but Taliban have defeated them, and a senior leader of the Afghan Taliban has said, "When we were fighting them and we were killing them, the Kabul forces were carrying them back to their bases." And I here assert that Islamic State will also claim the responsibility of these attacks. Dear viewers, these attacks once again came in the Hazara community, which was previously targeted by the Islamic States as well. Dear viewers, the police spokesman Pirdos said the first explosion happened on a road in southwestern Kabul near a neighborhood largely populated by the Shia Hazara community, who have been the frequent target by militants' attacks. The violence has soared in recent weeks as government forces and the Taliban clash and near daily battles across the ravaged countryside, with the militants appearing to focus on battling checkpoints and bases near Kabul. And the Taliban have now took control of many checkpoints, and a latest report saying that Taliban have took full control of 3 main districts. The Kabul government is now on its weak position, and anytime Taliban can take over. And I must also tell you that the Afghan President Ashraf Ghani has said in an interview that I am just one bullet away from my death. So the overall situation is not good for Kabul government, and Taliban have reached near 60 kilometers to Kabul. Today's third news update is coming from Israel, where a new report saying a meeting held between Israelis and UAE officials inside the world's tallest building and discussed investment opportunities amid Israel's intention to pull out Arabs Palestinians from their homes at Sheikh Jarrah. Sources said there was extremely little mention of Israeli bombardment just a week ago that killed over 250 Arabs. Sources also said that conversation was specially focused on business, and also they spoke about boosting tourism, creating jobs, technology sharing, diversifying economies, and tackling issues of water scarcity. And as UAE and Israel had normalized ties, hundreds of thousands of Israelis have visited Dubai, and they have spread their spies there to control Dubai. The both countries have signed about 25 agreements in more than 15 sectors, and yet the trade have been exceeded to 354 million United States dollars. The Israeli ambassador to UAE, Ethan, said, "It is happening and it didn't happen before. If you would have spoken to me a year ago, I wouldn't have guessed that we will speak here today in Dubai about all of these things that are happening." Tariq bin Hindi, the Director General of Abu Dhabi Investment Office, said UAE has helped Israeli companies set up in the UAE. The office is responsible for attracting foreign investment into Abu Dhabi and diversifying the private sector. We want the people of Israel, the people of the world, to come and join us, help us on that journey, work with us, learn from us, allow us to learn from you, and ultimately build a strong relationship. There were no high-level speakers from Israel at the event, though that may be a result of Israel's political uncertainty. The list of speakers had also changed quite significantly to exclude several of regional speakers listed on the agenda before the recent violence. Dear viewers, while Israel has still kept continued its attacks and assaults on Palestinians, UAE is trying to boost ties with Israel. And last month, the Israeli forces stormed the Al-Aqsa Mosque and killed 66 children in the besieged Gaza Strip. UAE just issued a rebuke to Israel, and the whole world was expecting much more. Despite Israel intends to flatten Al-Aqsa Mosque, and despite the Israel plans of a greater Israel, how can UAE normalize ties with Israel? We can't say anything. But I hear asserts that Jews will control UAE slept so-called leaders soon. Dear viewers, if you want to watch top news of the day, please subscribe Times of Ummah.